Hi, I'm Steve Timmis. Welcome to the Settlers Club, Mildura. We're going to go on a little tour today. We're going to go through some history, down into the cellars and poke around at the boardrooms and the inner sanctums of some of this building. This was a men's only club, so women were never allowed past this point, the reception where we are right now. If you're a non-member, you had to sign a book, be signed in, and then you're allowed to go through the tour. The building itself was built in the 30s, so strong Art Deco presence. If you look at the floor and the ceiling, it's the same. The elements around the building are all from that period. On the outside of the building, just as an interesting point, anywhere that has tiles on it was the newly renovated part in the 30s. Anywhere that has the old iron on it was back in the 1895, 1890s when the place was built. So let's start by going through to the reading room to my right, and we'll start our tour from there. Follow me. So this is, or was, the reading room. This is where men would come and have their cup of tea, read the morning papers. They'd collect the magazines of the era. This was Life magazine. I haven't got any in here, but that's where they were kept. You'd come in and just read through those, have a beer, have a cup of tea, and relax and read some of the print of the day, or a bit of a library as well. Obviously now we've turned it into a small distillery bar with some nice outside area. So you know, things have evolved. So we're now in the men's only domain. This was the bar, the main bar. It's quite big, as we'll see in a moment. We've now obviously converted it into offices. Behind me was reception. Up to my left was the boss's room, where he could oversee what was going on before cameras and things, obviously. The place was full of open fireplaces, which was the only source of heating. And a bit of an idea on what the place used to look like is perched just above it. So here we are up in the boss's office. Behind me is the windows that are now fogged in, but they were clear, so we could see what was going on down in the bar room and overlooking all the staff. I could open this window and just yell at whoever I wanted to if they were doing something wrong. Downstairs and to my left is reception or admin, so people were just handy there, and downstairs and immediately to my right is the boardroom. Let's go down there and have a look. So this is the boardroom, built 1895. It's original and as it was. So it's like 130 years old. The table has been in here since day one. The fireplace, this was the external part of the room, and around the walls there's some of the original committee men and people who influenced the club along the years, pretty much as it was 130 years ago. So come with me down to the cellar. A lot of people ask me if they could come for a tour. So let's do that. This place is very old and very eerie. Come on. This is where they rolled the kegs down back in the day, hence all the chips off the steps. Come on, come in. Right, so here we are down in the cellar. So back in the day, remember, no electricity, obviously no refrigeration. So the beer would be rolled down in kegs and parked in the cellar that we've got just here. The temperature of the day would obviously get up into the 40s sometimes, but down in the cellar it would always be around about 15 or 16 degrees Celsius. And in winter, maybe get down to 7 or 8 degrees. Perfect temperature for just a beer. So, not that I've had a beer at that temperature out of this cellar, because it hasn't been operational for some time, but it's certainly an interesting construction, soundproof, and there is a ghost down here somewhere too. So interestingly, we're able to have a look at how cellars were constructed back in the day. This is a cutaway from when we were doing the renovations. Cellars were constructed with cork panels, so they were pre-made and established on the day. The outer side of the construction was brick. We have 2 cork inner panels. Also up in the ceiling, it's the same, only with a concrete lid on it. Coming back down to the cellar itself, it was shallow and had a deep concrete floor as well. The whole place is obviously positioned underground and under the building. Fantastic. So down in the bowels of the sets, we've got these tiles. These are spare tiles for the roof. The roof was part of the Art Deco design, but it also had a strong Spanish influence on the design as well, with the porticos and the tiles. These tiles, I understand, were made locally, and I think a guy Kovac was involved in the making of them. But that's the spares for the roof. Whenever we get a hole, we come down and get one of those. The more interesting thing, or equally as interesting, is this little brick wall over here. So when we were doing the renovations down here, we cleaned out this cellar and we came across this brick wall. Now, there's always been rumours about tunnels connecting the Grand Hotel to the Settlers Club, potentially to the Working Men's Club, and also the Winterson Hotel. Now, I don't know whether those rumours are true or not, but what I do know for a fact is that behind this wall, it's filled in with dirt. And there's actually a door jamb there where a door sort of went to go. That was built in 1890. We can tell that by the style of that. There was also electricity that went over there. So, did we want to dig it up and solve that? Nah, we'll just leave that for another generation to have a look at. So here we are back in what we call the study now. This room used to be the barber shop. There were 2 barber chairs just here. There was a small bench over there, and as you come into reception, more often than not, you'd get a haircut if you'd come in from the farm, you know, once every week or 2. My dad, my family, we would come in here. Myself and my 2 brothers would sit over here. We'd get 3 crew cuts. The old man would go in and have a few beers, come out and get us when he was ready and perhaps unable to drive back to the farm. Mum would go up the street, do some shopping, come back, and she would have to sit across the road where the service station is now. There was a shelter shed over there for women to sit and wait until the old man had had his couple of beers. Not a bad system. So back in the day when this was a barber shop, it wasn't part of the very original building, because the building was built and, well, the club was set up and the building started in 1893, right? The building itself was built in 1895, and this renovated part out the front was redone in like 34 to 36. So it's an interesting stepping stone. We renovated this part about 10 years ago, and it's been a fantastic place to hang out ever since. Let's just step back in history a little bit and look and see how the club was set up. Now, you've got to remember, in 1895, there was no federal government, there was no electricity, there was no sewer, there was no running water, there was no roads, there was nothing, right? Particularly no federation. So around about 1900, when federation came in, we became Australia, and it was at that time that the guys that set up the club sort of decided to formalise things a little bit. So what they did is they went out and got a solicitor's opinion. So this is an opinion dated 1900, right? There are some questions asked about how to set up the club, and his opinion, very clear, succinctly, was just given in text and written. Like I said, this is dated 1900. From that, they set up the structure of the club, which meant that they hand wrote out an indenture, right? It was basically, the basic underlying sentiment in the indenture was anybody who signs up to be a member of the club will equally share in the debt and responsibility if the club goes under, right? So every single member had to sign this indenture or this constitution that made them part of the club financially responsible. Every single member that's ever been a member of this place has signed this and sealed it. These are little red seals here. They sort of fairly quickly run out of space. That was lovely. But what they did then is they went on and they printed off that same indenture, a little bit easier to read. And again, every single member for the last 120 odd years, it's actually not 120 because the club went into, got sold off and disbanded in 1995. So it went for about 100 years. So basically anyone who's been a member over that 100 years is in this book and their seal. So that was pretty good. What did you get when you're a member? The Settlers Club was more or less renowned for being a club for farmers, for self-employed business guys. You know, the working men were around at the Working Men's Club. The Settlers Club were for settlers and for business owners, that type of people. And the Mildura Club was sort of for the elite of the town at the time. All men's club. And you really had to be a member of a club here, both for your social interactions and for, there were a couple of pubs as well, but very late on the scene. We were a club town. That's that's part of our history now, and it's been great to have that legacy moving forward. The Working Men's Club is still going quite strong. So is the Mildura Club. Sadly, the Settlers Club, with the advent of pokies, they went under in the 1990s. When you were a member, you got a little, members book with the basic rules and regulations. You got a membership card like this. You had that, very important to have that. If you wanted to sign in a couple of mates from out of town, you got one of, as you come into the reception, you had to sign, he signed his name and you signed him in as a member, so you sort of felt a bit important that you could say, come around and have a look at my club. That was so cool. So if you stuffed up while you're in the club, if you made a mistake, if you threw up in the ashtray or belted somebody, you got put in the naughty boy book. So it was, the charges were laid against you and you had to front the committee and explain your situation, and they would give you some sort of penance, either ban you for a month or 3 months or for life in some circumstances. This is, not that page obviously, this makes for fascinating reading, and it does give an indication of of the thinking of the day. I'll read you out one little excerpt that was from Mr. Fleming. So this was only 1964, right? I was born in 60, so I was 4 years old at this time. He was requested to attend a meeting on the 27th of the 8th, 1964, to give explanation of conduct concerning an incident in which his wife appeared in the club lounge. Men's only club, remember, 1964. He appeared at the meeting of the committeemen as requested and was warned by the president of the serious nature of his actions. Mr. Fleming apologised profusely to the meeting and assured them that would not be a repetition of such an incident. His apology and explanation were accepted and no formal charges were laid. Some say he should have been shot, but sadly it doesn't go into a lot more detail than that, but this little book is full of little anecdotes like that. One of the other interesting books that we found, and I won't pull it apart and read anything out of it, but I will open it up for you. It's a suggestion book from 1900. So this book sat on the members at reception there, and if members wanted to make a suggestion, they would write it themselves in, obviously, the writing of the day. We, the undersigned, hereby respectfully request whatever their request was. That was taken to the next committee meeting. The committee men would write their answer in usually in the column on the side, yes, no, or we're going to do it. Some of the suggestions were about having hot water in the bath downstairs. Remember, this was a club that had a football club, cricket club, all that sort of stuff. So hot water. So what were they doing prior to that? They were just ice baths, I guess. So times have come right around. Other suggestions were. The one I like particularly is over in the car park across the road. people used to come in with their horses and their carts or their jinkers, and they'd disconnect them, put the horse in the stable, put the jinker over there, and put the nose bag on the horse, come over, have a few beers, go out, probably after dark, try and find your horse, try and find your jinker, connect the two, and then get home. Challenging sometimes, some evenings. So what they did is they suggested that we have essentially a drive-through. So you could pull up with your horse and jinker, tie it up, and then be able to drive out forward. Basically Australia's first drive-through. I like that idea, good practical solution to a problem that didn't find itself until sort of later in the evening. So we talk about recycling nowadays. For a big part of its life, both here and the Working Men's Club had bottles. So this is a beer bottle. It's got the Settlers Club insignia on the front. And this is a spirits bottle. Same thing. This has a cork and this has a cap on it. So what was normal would be you would fill up usually two of these King Browns with beer from the tap. The barman would put a cap on it. You'd take those two home after you've had a few drinks after work to have with your dinner that night. You'd bring them back the next day. They'd either get washed out and refilled straight away with a new cap, or you'd run the exchange. I don't know in detail, but brandy was a big thing back in the day as well. Brandy or fortified wine would go in this, put a cork on it. That didn't need a formal cap or a seal on it. You weren't trying to keep carbonation happening. So you would take that home, and when that was empty, you would come back and just refill that here as well. So how good's that for a recycling program? I think we should have it a go. So here we are back in reception. Thanks for watching, and I hope you got a little bit out of this little tour of the sets down into the history and the bowels and the little sneak peeks around the building itself. We've owned the building for 10 years. You don't really own a building like this. You're just a custodian for a while, but I like to think we've been a good custodian. We've done some good things, and I think and I hope this building will last for another 130 years. Drop in and say good day sometime.